Dear students, today we are going to discuss what are the different types of data that are used in statistics. And in our last class, we discussed what is statistics, and then we defined what is data. And there we discussed data is any type of factual information that is collected for any particular purpose, for any particular analytical purpose. And there we discuss that the data may be numerical in nature, that may be nominal, or that may be ordinal. So in measuring scale, we have data in categorical nature, we have data in ordinal nature and in numerical nature. Today we shall discuss the data having its specifically the two types, that is, one is called the data is primary data and other is called the secondary data. So first of all, we first have a look what is primary data, and then we will discuss what is secondary data. The data that is directly collected from the field by the investigator is called the primary data. Now, who is here the investigator? The investigator is the person who investigates the event. Now suppose I am the investigator, and for that purpose, suppose my purpose is to analyze the status of literacy rate in Hailakandi town. So my purpose here is to analyze the status of literacy rate in Hailakandi town. According to that purpose, according to that objective, I have to collect informations from the Hailakandi town. And there I may have either a sample survey, or I may follow census survey. Either of the method, if I follow sample or census survey, I will collect informations from the field. So if I follow either of the method, census or sample, and I am going to door household, and I am collecting information according to some set of questions. Now, what are the set of questions? Suppose, what is the name of the household, what is the age of the household, now what is the present monthly income of the household, how many family members are there. So in that way, there are set of questions I may set, and according to that questions I will collect information from the respondent. So here I am the investigator, and I am going to collect information from the field, from the respondent directly I am collecting information. That's why it is called primary data, and it is called first hand information. Why it is called first hand information? Because it is collected by the investigator directly from the field of investigation. So that is the primary data. And what is secondary data? Secondary data is that type of data which are collected by somebody else. And I am now, according to my purpose, if I am interested to collect that information, then I am collecting my informations according to my purpose from that source. Now, that source may be government published report or unpublished report, or from any private NGOs. They sometimes or periodically publish their reports, periodicals, books, journals. So if I collect information from somebody else, from other sources like books, journal, periodicals, reports, then that becomes second hand information, and that's why it is called secondary data. So secondary data is basically, it is collected by somebody else, and according to the purpose, investigator is collecting his informations from that source, and then it is called the secondary data. So primary data, that is collected by the investigator directly from the field of investigation, so it is called first hand information. And the secondary data is that type of data which are collected by somebody else, and according to my purpose, I am now collecting that information from that published or unpublished reports, from books, from journals, from periodicals. So at that time it become your secondary data. So that primary data, that is collected by the investigator first time directly from the field, that is called primary data. And secondary data, that is collected from some other sources like books, journal, reports, and it is collected by somebody else, and according to my purpose, I am collecting that information from that published or unpublished sources. So this is the basic definitions or meaning of primary data and secondary data. Now we are having some specific points of difference between primary data and secondary data. Now here we have written that is primary data and that is secondary data. Now first difference is that the primary data is original in nature. Now what is the originality? And secondary data that is not original as collected from other reports or from other sources. So primary data is called original in nature because here the investigator, he directly going to the investigation field and he is collecting information from the field, so it is original in nature. According to my purpose, according to my objectives, if I am the investigator, then from the field I am collecting that information, so that is called original. Now the secondary data is not original. Why it is not called original? Because it is collected by somebody else according to some other purpose. So here the purpose is different, and here the investigator is not directly going to the field, and from some other reports, from some other books or journals that is published, from that published or unpublished sources, I am as investigator, I am collecting my informations according to my purpose. So it is, in that sense, it is not original. So primary data is original in nature and secondary data is not original in nature. Number 2. So there is the first point of difference, and then number 2, that primary data is called, it is expensive in nature. Why it is called expensive in nature? Because when I am as investigator, I am going to collect my information from the field, then naturally it will take some time, it will take more energy, and it will take more money. So in that sense it is called expensive in terms of time, money and energy. But secondary data is called relatively less expensive in terms of money, in terms of your energy, in terms of your time. Why it is less expensive? Because somebody else, they have already collected that informations, and in ready-made format you are getting that information from that source. So by having less time, by having less energy, by having less money, you can collect this information, secondary data, from somebody else report. So it is less expensive. So that is less expensive. Now the third point of difference is that primary data, it is raw data, because any type of classifications or any type of categorical divisions that have not been done, when the investigator is collecting the information from the field, then it is having in raw format, because it is not processed. Now what is the raw data and what is processed data? Suppose I am collecting information from the field about the literacy status. Now from the field, when I am collecting the informations, then in plain paper I am collecting, or I am reporting all these information that are being collected from the field. There I have not done any categorizations or classifications in terms of either rural or urban, or in terms of male or female, or in terms of suppose poor family or rich family. So in that way I am just collecting information. Suppose I am giving some example here. The literacy rate in household 1, it is suppose 59%, in household 2 suppose it is 42%, in household 3 suppose it is 39%. In that way I am collecting informations from the households, and suppose it is 55%. So these are the raw data. Now if I have the category, suppose I have the category male and female, then this is the classifications. Suppose the first household, second, third household, they are the male person, so there are 59% male in Hailakandi district, or in ward number 1, or in ward number 1. In ward number 2, suppose I found 39% of the male, they are literate, and in ward number 3, suppose that 42% female are found literate, and in ward number 4, suppose 55% of the female they are found literate, so that there is some classifications. This is called processed data. So primary data is called, it is not processed, so it is called raw informations or raw data. But the secondary data is called, it is processed or it is categorized and directly used in analysis. Now that table you can directly you can take that table for analysis purpose. If you have some word wise comparative picture, if you have so word number 1 and word number 2 and word number 3 and word number 4, so there are suppose 4 word in your municipality area, and in word number 1 you have 59% of the male they are literate, and in word number 2 there are 39% of the male they are literate, and in female portion if you see, then in word number 3 and word number 4 42% and 55% they are literate. Now this is called processed or this is called categorized. So according to male female, according to rural urban, or according to any other category, you can have your classifications. So the secondary data, when you are having some published books or reports, then you are having that and the data is not in raw form, but that is in processed form, or it is in categorized form. So the secondary data is called processed data, or it is called categorized information. Now the point 4 difference is that it is not verified, and that's why it is less accurate. So primary data is not verified. When I am collecting information from the field as an investigator, there is no scope of verifications. Directly I am collecting information from the field, and for my purpose I am using that information. So there is the less scope for verification, there is less scope for examination, and that's why it is less accurate. But the secondary data, as it has been collected by somebody else, and for different purposes that data are being used by different persons. Suppose the census report. Now the census report, it is prepared by our Census of India, and that information is used by me, it is used by somebody else, person A, person B, person C. So according to different objectives, according to different purpose, that report have been used already. So there is a scope of verification. There is a scope of verifications. So once the report is going to publish, then it passes through some sort of examination, some sort of verification. That examination is not there in case of primary data. So the secondary data is having less error, and as it is less error, so it is more accurate, we can say, because it is verified. Now the point 5 difference is that the result of experiment, that is the primary data is the result of experiment, or it is the result of any survey. Now in science stream or in our stream, when we are having some experiment, in lab experiment, and I am the investigator, when I am having some chemical action reaction, and out of my experiment and now I am having some result. So after completion of my experiment, if I say H2O is equal to water, so that is from my experiment. Now we are having that result, so it is the primary data. So the result of any experiment or survey, that is called primary data. But the secondary data, it is already collected by somebody else, and it is having some published or unpublished form. So the secondary data is collected from the reports, it is collected from the books, or it is collected from the journals, etc. So the result of any experiment or survey, that is called primary data, but secondary data, it is collected from some published or unpublished reports. Now the point 6 difference is that the primary data is more specific. Why it is more specific? Because according to researchers' requirement, according to the investigators' requirement, that data is collected specifically. So it is more specific to the researcher's requirement. Suppose in my investigation, when I am going to study the literacy status in Hailakandi district or in Hailakandi town, then according to requirement I am collecting information from those households who are directly who will fulfill my requirement. But when the census report is being published by the Census of India, then it is having diverse use. That is having diverse use, and that report is used by me. It is used by somebody XYZ. That secondary data, as it is having diverse use and it is not collected for specific purpose, so that is specification, more specification we get in primary data and less specification we get in case of secondary data. So in that way we can make some differences between primary data and secondary data. The first point of difference is that it is originally in nature, but here we are having less originality, and it is less expensive, and it is less expensive, and it is raw data. Primary data is raw data, but it is categorical data, or it is categorized or processed or classified data. It is having less accuracy, because there is the scope of verification is less in case of primary data, but as it is verified, the secondary data is having less error. Now the primary data, it is the result of some experiment or it is the result of survey, but the secondary data it is collected from some published or unpublished sources. Again, this primary data is more specific because it fulfills the specific requirements of the researchers or investigator, but the secondary data is having less specific, because here the secondary data is having the diverse use. It is having diversity, because the secondary data, it is collected for some other purpose, and for according to my objectives, now I am using that information or data, so it is having less specificity. So these are the differences between primary data and secondary data. In our next class we shall discuss what are the different methods of collecting primary information or primary data. Basically there are 5 methods. We shall discuss one by one in our next class.